Hello everyone and welcome to another Star Trek Online video. Today I'm going to show you a budget build for the Nagus Marauder. Now first off, the Nagus Marauder is currently free in the game, and in order to claim it you open your Send Store, you go to the Promotions tab, and then in your Promotions tab somewhere there should be the Grand Nagus giveaway. Now this giveaway is running for 2 weeks in total, and depending on where you watch this video, it might already be over, I suppose. But if you're playing right now, you can claim that ship. It also comes with some costume unlocks. So you claim this here, and once you have claimed it, you get a box. You open this box, and then you have the ship and a bunch of costumes, and they are all account rate unlocks. So once you have opened that, you should be able to see the outfit and the ship on all other characters, and you can claim the ship and the outfit there. But you first need to open that box, right? It's important you claim this on one character. This giveaway, you open the box and then you open the other boxes, and it should unlock here for all other characters. Okay, now you have got your fancy new ship. Let's take a look at the build. So I have chosen Polaron for this, and just a small reason why. If you buy, for example, Polaron Isomax, as you can see, they currently go on the exchange very cheaply. Polaron is not a very popular damage type, so you can get Isomax very cheap. Now what are Isomax? Isomax are engineering consoles. They buff your weapon power and your max weapon power, which stacks, and they also can buff a damage type. Now Isomax come with many modifiers, and the Polaron ones buff Polaron damage. You can get Isomax that buff disruptor damage or phaser damage. You could also get Isomax that give you resistances and any kind of things, but you want to buff your damage type, right? So I chose Polaron, so I'm running Polaron Isomax, and all the engineering slots are filled with them. And they are really affordable in Polaron. Now, since I'm using Polaron, I'm obviously using here Polaron weapons, and the first one here is a chronometric Polaron dual heavy cannon. Now this is from a mission called Time and Tide. So if we go to episodes here, it's in the Future Proof arc, Time and Tide. And Time and Tide has the chronometric stuff in there. You can replay this mission and get all of those rewards if you want to. But what I'm using is, I'm using the dual heavy cannon, I am using the turret, and I am also using the console. So those are some pretty decent earpieces, and they are absolutely free to get, so go grab them. And then obviously you want to upgrade them. Now, about upgrading, the most important thing is to get your stuff to Mark 15. Don't worry too much about the rarity. Once an item is Mark 15, you can keep pumping upgrade materials in it in order to get the rarity to increase. That's something you can do once you have plenty of resources, but first just worry about getting stuff to Mark 15. As you can see, this build has very few golden things, and most of the items here are actually like very rare or ultra rare, right? But you know, if everything you have is like very rare, that's perfectly fine, and you should do fine. Now moving on, I do have advanced PCU Polaron dual cannon here. That's from the Lucari set. I guess I could also talk about the set bonus, right? So the chronometric set gives you some more auxiliary power, and it gives you a buff that you can activate with a 2-minute recharge. The buff is actually a bit stronger than what's displayed here. The values on ground often are a bit off, but we'll go into space afterwards. Now the advanced PCU Polaron duals, they are from the Lucari set. So a reputation gear, and if you don't have that yet, don't worry. You can just use regular Polaron weapons until you get your reputation. Now the piezoelectrics, they give Polaron damage as a set bonus, so that's why they are on there. And they come together with the console that also gives you Polaron damage and some maximum shield capacity and flight turn rate, and so we've already got 2 nice sets here. Next, another reputation thing, the Dark Matter Quantum Torpedo. This is from the Discovery reputation, and this is very early in the reputation. If you don't have this yet, you can just run any other torpedo and just grind the reputation until you get this one. But this only requires tier 1 in the reputation, so it should be fairly easy to get. Now I'm also running this together with the Lorca's console. This is also a Discovery reputation set, and the 2-piece gives you more crit severity, while this console gives you crit chance, so a very nice thing to have. And until you have this console, you can just run a regular Polaron phase modulator in here, or something like that, right? So if you're missing some of the reputation consoles, just run like Polaron phase modulators or something else that you like. Now, the last 2 weapons are just regular Polaron weapons. Then the Deflector, Impulse Engine and Shields are the Jem'Hadar set. Now, this Jem'Hadar set is something that a new Jem'Hadar character already has equipped on their ship. But if you're not a Jem'Hadar character, you can actually still get this. It's from an old, sort of retired mission arc, but if you go into like your missions and available, the Lost Dominion, those should start the story chain that gives you those items. But you don't have to use those. The 2-piece is interesting because it gives Polaron damage. Well, interesting, it's not really that relevant, but it's easy to get sets that looks nice and buffs Polaron. But there are plenty of other sets that you could use. There is, for example, it's the New Frontiers arc. There is Melting Pot. This mission has an entire set of gear. Once again, this is not necessarily the best gear you can get, but it will do its job until you get more reputation stuff. Like eventually you can consider running 4-piece of the Discovery set here. You can also use 2 or 3 pieces of the Discovery set. I'm running here a Fleet Warp Core actually. So if you have a fleet, you can grab a Fleet Warp Core from the colony. There is also a Fleet Deflector from the colony that's very interesting that you could run. And then you could run 2 pieces of Discovery. Or if there is a set from any reputation that you really desire, just use that. So eventually you can run all reputation gear here, or mixed fleet and reputation gear here, or use any set that you desire. Just run some missions and get yourselves some stuff early on, and then replace them as you level your reputations. Now, here in the back, I'm using this heavy chronometric Polaron turret from the quest gear. I'm using a kinetic cutting beam from the Omega reputation. You do not need to use that. It forms a 2-piece with the console, but you can also just run a 3rd turret here, and then I just have a regular Polaron turret. Now at this point, I like to point something out, how you could even sort of improve on this build already actually. Because in the Gamma Quadrant story arc, the last mission home offers certain set gear. This is the morphogenic Polaron stuff. And the weapon here is actually a turret, so you could use that, and there is a console in there that improves Polaron damage. Technically, you could even run the torpedo, although it's not a great torpedo, I probably wouldn't put it in the forward slot. Technically, you could replace this cutting beam with a rear fire torpedo, and then use the metamorphic Polaron weapon in here somewhere. And maybe replace this regular Polaron phase modulator with that console. So that's an option, if you want to. Now I've already talked about the Isomax, and then here we have the assimilated module from the Omega reputation. We have the 0-point energy conduit from the Romulan reputation. And yeah, I've already talked about the Lorca. This is the Lucari reputation, this chronometric is the quest, and this is just a regular Polaron phase modulator. Now I will also put a link to the wiki in here, and if any item you're unsure how to get it, also you can search the wiki, and it's a very good resource to consult. Now this console comes with the ship, so if you claim this ship, you will have this console. It's not a particularly good console, but it can be fun, and you know, it does give crit chance, so it's not the worst console either. Now let's have a look at the skills that I have chosen. Now this build assumes you do not have any real cooldown reduction, right? Now a lot of builds run Boimler, which is a personal space trait that you can get from the low-buy store, or you can buy it on the exchange. But it does take a bit of grinding to get the energy credits to afford this, and low-buy are not something you can easily get. They are essentially found in lockboxes, or you can get some of them from like events. Like for example, this year's event campaign gave a huge chunk of low-buy, but it also, like, this was a full year on event campaign sort of, so getting that, I assume there is something like that next year, but will take a while to get, right? So you will be able to get this trait eventually if you keep playing the game, but it might take a little bit. Now, if you don't really have much cooldown reduction, you often want to bring 2 copies of a skill. So I brought Scatter Volley 2 and 1, so you can alternate between those 2. I have 2 tactical teams, and I have 1 torpedo spread too. Now you could have another torpedo spread here if you wanted to, but I feel like the tactical team offers just more survivability, and you don't need the torpedo spread to be constantly ready, I feel like. Also, torpedoes don't reload that quickly, and if your timing is not that great in the first place, I feel like you probably are better off this way. But you could replace the tactical team with torpedo spread 1 if you wanted to. Now, if you can get more cooldown reduction, if you can get something like Boimler's, then you can drop the second copy of this and replace it with some other skills, but this is a good starting setup here. Now, in the engineering slot here, I have Suppression Power Rush 3 and 1. Suppression Power Rush 3 is something that you might have to buy from the exchange or craft the manual yourself, because you can't buy that from an NPC. Like, there is an NPC that sells skills, and you can buy essentially any skill here from an NPC for very cheap. There is one at Kronos, like I'm here at Kronos, it would be up here in this area. And the one in Earth Space Dock is... it's like beneath Admiral Quinn's office there. So, yeah. If you don't have Suppression Power Rush 3, just use 2. You can buy Suppression Power Rush 2 from the vendor. So that's fine as well. Now I have emergency power to weapons and shields here. And now here is where actually a little bit of cooldown reduction comes in, or a specific one, right? Because the duty officers I use for space are damage control engineers. Those are relatively cheap, and those have a chance to reduce the cooldown of emergency power abilities when you use them. And you can stack 3 of those, and I have 2 emergency power abilities, so I'll use weapons, shields, and I will rotate between them. And with 3 of them, you should almost certainly get a proc when you need one and be able to keep rotating them, right? So this is enough that you only need 1 copy of those 2 skills. And that's something that you can do very cheap, like those usually sell for less than 1 million, which means getting 3 of those should be very affordable. Now I also have a warp core engineer here to improve the power, and a duty officer that reduces the recharge time of torpedoes, or well, has a chance to reduce the recharge time of torpedoes. Those are not that expensive usually either, but don't worry about those too much, just get the 3 damage control engineers, those are the important part, and slot whatever else you have in the other space slots. Now, continuing on, we have emergency power weapons, shields, the suppression power assist. Here we have an engineering team and a reverse shield polarity. Reverse shield polarity is something that can help keep you alive if everything else fails, so that's a very good emergency skill to have. Engineering team is just a heal. It can also repair disabled subsystems. Against some enemies that you fight, this will come in handy quite a bit. So in science, I have a science team and a hazard emitter. Science team is a very good clear. There are certain enemies that are very annoying to deal with if you don't have a science team. And hazard emitter is also a clear and also a heal, so this helps keep you alive. Now, what I should also say is there is specialization seating here, and the suppression barrage, they are a command skill. So you need an engineer that is also a command bridge officer. Now, how do you do that? Now, if you have a bridge officer here and you go to skills, there are specializations. This one is trained in all of them. But if you have like another one, this, for example, isn't trained in any specialization, right? In order to do that, you need a manual, and I mean you need to promote them first, so. Those manuals, you should get one, I think, for free while leveling. But you can buy them in the exchange. So you can go to the exchange, and then you could go to training manuals, and you could look for a command manual. And you could then go type in command. And you could probably do ultra rarity because they are ultra rare. And then you can see specialization qualification command. You can also craft those. To do that, I think you do need to have the specialization leveled yourself. But, I mean, they are not the most expensive things here. But keep in mind, you should, I think you get a box. Yeah, you should get a box while leveling that allows you to choose one manual. So there is that. And with a manual, you can then, like, train a bridge officer in a specialization, and if you want to, you can train them in all specializations and then switch at any time which specialization they have. So if you switch ship later on and you need a different one, you can always change that here. And next up we have the traits. So first, your personal space traits. Now, a lot of good traits come from logboxes, and you can buy them in the exchange for energy credits, so you don't have to spend money. Like, don't have to spend real money on it, but you have to grind quite a few energy credits to get those. So at first, you're just going to slot what you have. Things like Operative, for example, which gives crit chance and crit severity, and based on your profession, you will have something like Grace Under Fire is a great trait that you get as an engineer. And, you know, just go through that list and see what you have. There are some traits that you get from playing missions. One trait that you want eventually is the Boimler effect, as I mentioned earlier. That is should be one of your long-term goals. Unconventional systems is another good trait. That's a good long-term goal. But this trait, well, before this trait becomes useful, you need a lot of universal consoles that you want to use. So this trait is only really strong once you have a lot of other gear. So this is pretty irrelevant if you're a new player, but becomes more and more relevant the longer you play and the more stuff you acquire. So yeah, Boimler should be your first trait that you go after, and maybe unconventional systems later on as you've amassed more universal consoles that you want to spend. Now let's get to starship traits. Now the bad news about starship traits is that starship traits come from starships, and a lot of starships are not free. So the first trait that I would highly recommend is Emergency Weapon Cycle. And yes, this is not a free ship that it comes from, but it's a sensor ship. And if we go, for example, to the event campaign, you can see this year's event campaign gave you 2 coupons that give you a free sensor ship. So if you, for example, played this campaign, or if next year there will be a similar reward when you play the campaign, or maybe there will be a coupon or so for the anniversary event, who knows? Like, we shall see what next year brings, but you can eventually get some sensor ships for free if you keep playing the game and participate in all the events. And one of the ships you should try to get is a ship that has Emergency Weapon Cycle. Now, one of those ships would be the Arbiter Battlecruiser, but there are other ships that have this trait. And what this trait does, it means whenever you use emergency powered weapons, you have less weapon power cost, and you have some firing cycle haste, which is pretty good. This is a trait that you probably want on any energy weapon build you run. And it's something to try to get in the long term. If you don't have this yet, obviously, then run something else. But this is something you want to aim for, and that is very achievable even if you want to play this game for free. So, the next trait is going to be Withering Barrage. Now, Withering Barrage is even easier to get, because... Where's my Withering Barrage here? Yeah, so Withering Barrage extends the duration of Cannon Scatter Volley. This is a great trait to run on any build that uses Cannon Scatter Volley. And during a Klingon recruitment event, you can get the Sensor ship for free that has this on it. Actually, there are quite a few Sensor ships that have this trait on it, but one of those can be acquired for free during a Klingon recruitment event, if you create a Klingon recruit. And there hasn't been a Klingon event for a while, so I suspect there will be one maybe next year, February, March or so on. Obviously that's speculation, but if you keep playing this game, eventually such an event will happen and you can get this for free. Or if you like have a Sensor token, you could also get a ship from the Sensor that has this trait. As I've said, like, I will have a link to the wiki in there, and you can look up or Google like where you can find those traits and so on. So the next trait I have here is Improved Critical Systems, and this is something you get from a temporary recruit. Now, if you don't have a temporary recruit, there will be a recruitment event at some point again, and otherwise just slot what you have, right? So with those traits, as you do more events and get potentially free ships from them, like there will be the winter event soon, we don't know what ship there will be, but it will also come with a trait, maybe it's good, maybe not. So you just will acquire more traits as you get more ships over time, and you will just slot whatever else you have here. For example, at the last trait is Shriekbreaker, and this is from this ship that I'm currently flying, the Nagus. It's not a particularly great trait, but it's definitely something you have if you have this ship. By the way, in order to unlock a ship, you have to level your starship, so your starship has 5 levels, and when you just blow stuff up in space, you gain experience, and eventually you reach level 5. With level 5 you unlock this trait, and then you can use this trait on any starship that you have. So, that's nice. Okay, so as I said, Emergency Weapon Cycle and Withering Barrage are definitely some traits that you want to have. And there should be a long-term goal to acquire them at some point. And the other traits, you know, use whatever you have, especially. Now for Space Reputation, I'm just using like crit chance and crit severity and bonus weapon damage and even more crit chance. Now Space Reputation, as you level your reputation, you will unlock those passives automatically. They unlock at certain tiers, so at level 2 and at level 4 in every reputation you unlock space traits, and as you level your reputations you will unlock those. And now we're gonna do an Elite Gala patrol with this build. Now I wouldn't go into necessarily too many elite queues with this, but you can most certainly just do advanced stuff perfectly fine. And as we will see here, Elite should work as well. At least this patrol, which isn't the hardest. Now, keep in mind you wanna set your power to weapons. And now we're gonna attack this case in here. You also wanna activate your aura here, don't forget that. This ship has cruiser auras. And will help you, because it reduces, like the weapon system efficiency, reduces the weapon power consumption and therefore increases your damage essentially. Now as you can see, it takes a little bit to take those enemies down, but they don't really prove to be much of a threat to me right now. Yeah, I should have kept my... Oh, by the way, Now I can use the battle mode here. And actually I'm gonna try to use the console here. Why can't I use my swarm? There we go, swarm missiles. But yeah, this isn't a particularly good power, but you know, it can be fun. So this console here, this special console, you can change battle mode. You have an offensive mode where you have the swarm missiles, and you have a more defensive mode where you have like this EMP that you can draw. And you can switch modes relatively fast. There is even a visual animation where ship changes. So that can be fun. And if you're wondering why my ship is this purple, this is the shield that I'm using from the Marauder. Now, if your shields drop too much, you can use reverse shield polarity to get them a bit replenished. You can also use here your, I don't know how they're called, inspiration abilities, because this is a command ship. And you just, you know, keep hitting your abilities and you keep shooting them. Now, as you can see, it takes a little bit to take out those enemies. But this ship is more than capable of doing this. And I can now use also my engineering abilities. Now we can use... Now if I were a better pilot, I would keep all of my enemies in front of me, since I'm using... since I am using scatter volley, you technically want to keep all enemies in your front line. But you know... true professional advantage. Now here is also the chronometric energy converter from one of the sets that will boost your damage, so you can use that. Has like a 2-minute cooldown, so it's not gonna be ready that often, but if it's ready, might as well press it.
Keep concentrating fire on individual ships. Separate them and whittle down their numbers.
And keep in mind, this is an elite, those are elite enemies. And this ship is essentially free. And aside from like the two sort of sensor traits, there really isn't anything on there that...
We will not go quietly!
That is like hard to get. I mean, even those sensor traits are not that hard to get. So now we are going to engage those carriers. Give them a nice lovely torpedo spread. Maybe do some anti-shield frequency. Now this is an engineering character, which means it's a bit more tanky than some other characters. But if you were a tactical character, for example, you would be doing more damage. And a science character has like a mixture of support and damaging abilities. So each has their own captain abilities they can use. Now you see my shield is getting low, so we can hit the reverse shield polarity. And reverse shield polarity has quite a long cooldown, but you know, it's a very nice skill to help keep you alive. And as you can see, there wasn't really too much of a scary situation so far. I did use miracle workers once, but that's what they're here for. That's why you're an engineer. Now we can shoot some rockets at those guys. We can also switch our mode. Fire sort of an EMP blast if we wanted to.
You will stand down.
You can certainly have some fun with a little bit console switching. Also, with the suppression barrage that I have, it will debuff the enemies. Like any enemy you hit, they will do less damage, which once again helps with survival. And if we'd be doing this queue on advanced, for example, I would probably already be finished. But elite enemies do have a certain amount of hit points. So I wouldn't necessarily take this ship, as I've said, in elite TFOs. But if you want to do advanced TFOs, This ship is more than capable of doing that. And if you just wanna do story missions, right, it will absolutely be capable of doing that. And I'm even sitting still here, not moving, which if sitting still is a little bit scary, because the enemy might just critically hit you quite a bit and you won't evade any shots, but that's fine. So, I'm gonna engage the area here. And don't forget to use your inspiration abilities when you have them. I usually do forget to use them, as you might have noticed. I can also buff my energy levels here a little bit. That would improve my damage, and then we launch our missiles here again. And you try to wanna keep like your scattering volley up all the time, which I'm also failing at. You can use keybinds and essentially put a lot of abilities on what's called a spam bar, and then just keep spamming one key. That will automatically trigger those abilities when they are ready, which is a very lazy way of doing things. I only have my emergency powers on a spam bar, to be honest, but you could definitely put more on there. So gonna go for more suppression barrage. Scatter volley, my shields are getting a little bit low, so I'm using the science team here. I'm also using a reverse shield polarity here. Now I do have enemies all around me, shields are almost gone, so we can use a reverse shield polarity. And now we just keep shooting the cruiser. This is not ideal because I have a scatter volley and I'm only shooting one ship. This is not what we want, so I can maneuver around a little bit here. You can use evasive maneuvers to maneuver a little better. Keep in mind that if you go with less speed, you have a better turning circle. So if you are moving, don't always move at full speed. If you want to turn, you might want to move with less speed. So my front shield is broken, but tactical team automatically redistributes my shield, which keeps my front shield up here. Now, we could use, for example, the turn type, which is a good defensive buff. Now I want to turn, I'm going to reduce my speed. I'm going to use some more heals here. I could have used like a miracle work if I wanted to. It wasn't really needed just yet. You do want to keep an eye out on your hit points, and if necessary, you want to react there with heals as appropriate. Now my reverse shield polarity isn't quite ready yet, but since I'm an engineer, you know, I can, for example, go to a rotate shield frequency to help my shield. And if things get really dire, I do have my miracle worker. And there is science team for some more shield. As you can see, you know, this is all working relatively well here.
I'm taking you with me.
And now we have the final boss, the flagship, together with two cruisers. We do have our suppression barrage, the higher level one ready, and the scatter volley. And there is a nice torpedo spray. Now I can also use my buff here. I should have done that earlier. 4 shields are failing, but tactical team is ready once more, so it will take care of that. Just keep scatter volleying, and now this buff is ready, and now you see it's getting critical, so I'm gonna use my miracle workers here. Now I'm gonna use my reverse shield polarity, and we're gonna keep pressing some heals here. I'm also gonna press all the buffs. We're gonna switch mode and fire an EMP at those guys. We have another scatter volley with a suppression barrage ready. Now I might need another miracle worker here. So as you see, the final boss is actually having a little bit of a bite here. So we need to use some more defensive abilities, but this ship can take it for the most part. If you get too concerned, you can, as always, use brace impact, and you can use emergency, like you can use evasive maneuvers to get out of range and get a little bit of respite. Wait for some of your abilities to recharge, come back in. I should probably try to finish off the cruiser first, just to reduce the overall damage that I'm getting. So we're gonna do that. I can use a defensive buff here, and the cruiser's going on nicely. Let's give him a rocket barrage. So that one is gone. Then we're gonna take care of the raider, and now we're gonna come back to this ship. And beautifully as it is going down here.
Excellent work.
And there you go. This very budget build has just completed an elite patrol. And I didn't even blow up once. Now keep in mind, this is not the hardest patrol. And as I've said earlier, I would not recommend using this ship necessarily in elite TFOs like this, but it will definitely get you through advanced, and yeah, it's a free ship. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful, and I'll see you next time.